The Conquests of Alexander the Great from Greece to India. The young king stood at the edge of the Hellespont, his eyes fixed on the waters that separated Europe from Asia. Alexander of Macedon had inherited a formidable kingdom from his father, King Philip II, and with it an ambitious vision. The world beyond the sea was one of wonders and threats, of ancient kingdoms and powerful armies. But to Alexander it was a world waiting tea. "Shall we?" he asked his closest friend and general, Hephaestion, a smile crossing his lips as he stepped forward to the edge of the water. "Yes, Alexander. We shall," replied Hephaestion, sensing the shared excitement that ran through his king and friend. Alexander raised his arm, and thousands of soldiers cheered, their voices echoing across the waters. For them, this crossing wasn't merely a step toward Persia, but the beginning of a mission to spread Greek ideals, art, and philosophy across the known world. As they boarded their ships, every soldier felt the weight of destiny upon them, for they were no longer just an army. They were the bearers of Hellenism, bound to change the world. Chapter 1: The Battle of Granicus. As Alexander's army marched across Asia Minor, they encountered their first challenge. The Persian forces had gathered at the banks of the Granicus River. The Persians, accustomed to fighting in the vast plains of their empire, were prepared to defend their homeland from this Macedonian invasion. Under the command of their satraps, they had amassed a sizable force, and Alexander knew the river crossing would be fraught with danger. "We will attack now at dawn," Alexander declared confidently, his voice clear and unwavering. "The Persians expect us to hesitate, but we will show them Macedonian courage." The Macedonian cavalry surged forward, plunging into the icy river. Alexander himself led the charge, his armor gleaming as he charged into the Persian lines. The river's current was swift, but his determination was stronger. The Macedonian phalanx, a tightly knit formation of spear-bearing infantry, pressed forward, piercing the Persian defense. As they reached the opposite shore, Alexander's soldiers fought fiercely. The young king, a natural leader, inspired them with his courage and strategy. He charged directly into the heart of the battle, his presence a rallying point for his men and a terror to the enemy. By nightfall, the Persians had been defeated, and the victory at Granicus became the first great step in Alexander's conquest. Yet the journey had only begun. Chapter 2: Conquering Asia Minor and the Siege of Tyre. With Granicus behind them, Alexander and his army swept across Asia Minor. The cities of Sardis, Halicarnassus, and Ephesus fell before him as he liberated Greek cities that had long been under Persian control. Each victory brought new allies, bolstered his army, and spread his legend. Then came Tyre, a city that lay on a fortified island off the coast. The people of Tyre, confident in their defenses, refused to surrender. But Alexander was relentless. Over several months, his engineers constructed a causeway across the water, connecting the mainland to the island city. The Tyrians fought back fiercely, even setting the causeway aflame, but Alexander's determination only grew. At last, the Macedonian forces breached Tyre's walls, bringing the city to its knees. The siege of Tyre became a symbol of Alexander's tenacity. He would not be deterred by walls, oceans, or any challenge that stood in his way. Chapter 3: The Battle of Issus and the Encounter with Darius. Alexander's fame spread across Persia, and soon King Darius III, ruler of the Persian Empire, could no longer ignore the Macedonian threat. At the narrow plains of Issus, Darius assembled a massive army to confront Alexander directly. Confident in his numbers, Darius expected an easy victory. But Alexander's tactical genius was unmatched. He positioned his forces on the terrain's high ground, effectively neutralizing the advantage of Darius's larger army. Leading from the front, Alexander and his cavalry struck with precision, carving through the Persian lines. As the Macedonian phalanx pushed forward, the Persians began to falter. In the heat of battle, Alexander spotted Darius's chariot. Without hesitation, he charged toward it, hoping to end the battle by capturing the Persian king. Darius, seeing the Macedonian king approach, turned and fled, leaving his army in disarray. The Persian forces crumbled, and the victory at Issus cemented Alexander's reputation as a military genius. After the battle, Alexander captured Darius's family, treating them with honor and respect, a move that won him admiration and loyalty across Persia. Yet he knew that his journey would not be complete until he stood as the undisputed ruler of Persia. Chapter 4: Egypt and the Founding of Alexandria. Alexander's march took him south to Egypt, where he was welcomed as a liberator. Chapter 4: Egypt and the Founding of Alexandria. Alexander's march took him south to Egypt, where he was welcomed as a liberator. The Egyptians, weary of Persian rule, hailed him as pharaoh, and Alexander accepted the role with humility. During his time in Egypt, he founded a city near the Nile Delta, a place that would bear his name, Alexandria. Here, he declared, will stand a city of learning, culture, and knowledge, a place where East and West shall meet and flourish together. Alexander's vision for Alexandria was grand. He wanted it to be a beacon of Hellenistic culture, where scholars, artists, and thinkers from all over the world could gather and share knowledge. His founding of the city was not only a strategic move but a declaration of his belief in the fusion of cultures. Chapter 5: The Battle of Gaugamela and the Fall of Persia. With Egypt secure, Alexander turned his gaze eastward, toward the heart of the Persian Empire. Darius had raised another army, this one even larger, and the two forces met on the plains of Gaugamela. The Persian king had prepared carefully, choosing an open field where his chariots and war elephants could be deployed to full effect. But Alexander was undeterred. He devised a clever strategy, instructing his men to create gaps in their lines, luring the Persian chariots into traps where they would be vulnerable. As the battle raged, Alexander led a decisive charge that broke through the Persian center. Darius fled once more, his empire in ruins. The Macedonians marched into Babylon, Susa, and finally Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of Persia. In a dramatic gesture, Alexander ordered the city's grand palace to be burned, a symbolic act of retribution for the Persian invasion of Greece over a century earlier. With the fall of Persepolis, Alexander had conquered the Persian Empire. But his ambition drove him onward. Chapter 6: The Journey to India and the Battle of Hydaspes. Alexander's army, weary but loyal, followed him eastward, into the unknown lands of Central Asia. After years of campaigning, they reached the Indus Valley, where Alexander encountered the armies of King Porus. The two leaders clashed on the banks of the Hydaspes River, in what would become one of Alexander's most challenging battles. Porus was a formidable opponent, commanding war elephants that struck terror into the Macedonian ranks. Yet Alexander's tactics once again proved superior. Despite heavy rains and difficult terrain, he managed to outflank Porus's forces, securing a hard-fought victory. Impressed by Porus's bravery, Alexander allowed him to retain his kingdom as a vassal, a testament to his respect for worthy foes. Chapter 7: The Return and Alexander's Legacy. After years of constant warfare, Alexander's men were exhausted. They longed to return home, and Alexander finally agreed to turn back. As they marched westward, the journey took a toll on the army, many of whom perished in the harsh desert of Gidrosia. In Babylon, Alexander began to consolidate his empire, encouraging intermarriage between Macedonians and Persians, hoping to create a unified ruling class. He dreamed of new conquests of Arabian deserts and African shores, but his body, worn down by years of war, would not allow it. At the age of 32, Alexander fell ill and died. His empire, stretching from Greece to India, was divided among his generals, but his legacy endured. His conquests spread Greek culture across Asia, blending it with local traditions and creating the Hellenistic world. In the centuries that followed, tales of Alexander's courage, strategy, and vision became legend, inspiring countless others to dream of distant lands and daring exploits. And though his empire crumbled, Alexander's spirit lived on in the cities he founded, the ideas he spread, and the indelible mark he left on history.